It is my absolute pleasure to welcome in co-hosts of OTCB Podcast, NLL Premier Broadcaster, former NLL player, former Man Cup winner, and also regular co-host of Coast to Coast. Welcome, Teddy Jenner.
Michael, how are you, brother? What's going on?
I'm doing well. And again, this is awesome for me as an aspiring broadcaster. You are cream of the crop in the NLL. And again, you're a two-time Man Cup champion, which I have learned is a big deal in lacrosse. And also 49 points, 157 loosies, and 41 penalty minutes, which I did not know. That's not bad stats in my opinion. And also 2016 NLL Media Person of the Year. I like your accolades, sir.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michael. I'm just under a point a game guy. I had a cup of coffee with a few teams in the NLL, but being much better at my craft behind the microphone than I was on the floor.
And I'm glad you mentioned that first, because one of the questions I wanted to ask you, because it's one of the most intriguing stories I've ever seen as a person who follows broadcasters around, not like that, but I just want to know how you went from being an athlete who played for a good 5 years at least to being a premier broadcaster for the NLL. Take me through that entire experience. Was it one of your goals? How did this all come about?
Yeah, I think even before I was done playing as a kid, I always knew that I wanted to get into broadcasting. I wanted to do play-by-play, whether it was for lacrosse or other sports. I was always the kid that, muted the TV and pretended to do the play-by-play for all the other sports while I was watching. So I have to honestly give a lot of credit to Craig Rybczynski, the legendary Nighthawks broadcaster. He was my teacher at Mercyhurst College when I was in school. So he helped me get on that path. And then he actually got me to call, I did color with him on a lacrosse game when I was a healthy scratch one time. I think we were in Ottawa when I was with Rochester, and he knew that I wanted to get into it. And he asked me if I wanted to do color commentary on the broadcast with him. And I jumped at the opportunity. So that was the first NLL game I got to be a part of. And it just kind of lit the fire. And I knew that once I was done playing, it was going to be something that I wanted to pursue. And I have to thank guys like Steve Govett and Josh Gross and Joel Feld for really helping me continue to push along this path, because there was, as anybody that knows that wants to get into this industry, you hear a lot of no's early on, and you hear a lot of, oh, you're not quite ready yet. We need you to have more experience. And so I just kept on plodding away. And Brad Challoner and I were calling junior lacrosse games way back in 2010 together. And now we're partners on TSN. So it's been a long road, but definitely something I've always wanted to do, and something I am very lucky to do each and every week.
You do a very good job with that, I'd say. And just to let you know, I laughed so hard at you muting the TV because that's literally what I used to do as a kid.
I still do,
blew
because
my
sometimes
mind.
the broadcasters annoy me.
And not even that, like just the passion for that. That really, hey, I have some common ground right there that I had no clue anyone else did. So that's awesome that you said that. But because you are part of NLL Media, I've got to ask you the tough questions for this season.
Bring it on, brother.
Right. One of them is this one. There are a few teams in the East fighting for a playoff spot. A few of them, like Halifax, you broadcasted quite a few games for.
Mm-hmm.
And there's two teams in the West that aren't named San Diego and Calgary that are pretty good. Of all those lower tier teams, if you will, which one sticks out to you the most that no one might be talking about for the playoff run?
Well, I think when you look at those, let's call them 5 teams,
Right.
that are fighting for spots still right now. You have to think that Colorado is going to slowly start to continue to get more talking points, because they are the defending champs. They have already secured a spot. Panther City is a difficult one because, they're only in their second season, and they're a team that is, they finished 6-3 down the stretch last year. They're having incredible this year under Tracy Kelusky again. And so I don't know if people are taking them seriously enough when you compare them to the other 3 teams in the East. So I think Panther City might be one team people aren't giving enough credit to. And then out East, obviously, you have Halifax, you have Georgia, you have Philadelphia, sort of all battling. I think Philadelphia might be the outlier in that. And just because of what Mitch Jones is doing and what Joey Rezaterrence is doing and what Paul Day has done to help that team get into a position to be a playoff contender. So I think Panther City and Philadelphia, the teams I don't think people are talking enough about, of teams that are trying to, secure their spots and figure out where they're going to be. But conversely, I don't think people are talking enough about the skid that the Rochester Nighthawks are on right now.
Yeah,
You were
I
talking
agree.
about it the other day, and they've lost 4 in a row now. They've lost 5 of 6. They don't
Yep.
have a win since the start of February. They have to play Georgia and Philadelphia to end the season. If things continue to go wrong for this club, after starting 6-0, they could completely miss the playoffs. And it's a duel of fates, to take a Star Wars term, of Georgia and Rochester. Georgia started 0-7, and a win this weekend gets them into third. Rochester started 6-0, and a loss this weekend can see him get into fourth, drop to fourth, maybe even drop out of the playoffs. So, as much as we want to talk about teams trying to work their way into the playoffs out east, the fact that Rochester is unfortunately doing the opposite and working themselves out of the playoffs has to be a huge concern. And I said this to Pat Gregoire on the podcast this weekend. Usually, when a team takes a dip, especially one as dramatic as this, it's because there's injuries, there's guys in and out of the lineup, things aren't going well. Everybody's healthy in Rochester, maybe save for Dan Coates being in and out of the lineup. Rylan Hartley's healthy. Connor Fields is healthy. Rylan Reese is healthy. You go up and down the lineup. This is a team that is healthy, and they just can't find ways to win games. And they're going to have to down the stretch, or they're going to find themselves going from 6-0 to out of the playoffs.
Hey, you mentioned Rochester, and I have I jumped on this the tail end of the week. I've been trying to talk about that a little bit more, so I am on the same page as you. The last 4 weeks, as a former player yourself, who's played more than a good 5 years in the league, I wonder about the travel, because the last 4 weeks, despite two of them being at home, it came after road games.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think being at home last week and now this week at Georgia, they kind of settled down? Because that's kind of where I'm leaning at this point.
Yeah, and for a team like Rochester, I don't think travel is the biggest issue, because for the most part, those guys all sort of live within driving distance. They have practice
Okay.
midweek. They're not doing a lot of flying. Sure, travel to Georgia is a little bit tough. The bus rides to Albany are some of the worst in the league, but they're not having to go cross country. They're not going east to west. The Vegas trip is sort of a one off, but all of their other road trips, they haven't had to go further than Philadelphia, essentially.
That's fair.
Georgia is a bit of a trek, but they can't be using that as an excuse. They have to look within themselves in that room and forget about this losing streak that they're on right now. They just got to start winning. They got to win 2 games, secure their spot in the playoffs, and then worry about what happens after that. They can't be looking in the past. They can't be dwelling on the fact that they have 2, 3 1-goal losses in the last 5 weeks. They just have to say, you know what? Let's win 1 game. That's all we got to do. Win 1 game this weekend, knock off the red hot Georgia Swarm. We'll worry about Philadelphia after that.
Amen. And I believe Georgia's favor, which again blows my mind considering how this thing started.
Yeah.
So we mentioned Rylan Hartley, who of course is iconic for either doing split saves or letting 10 goals go by him.
Yeah.
In terms of goalies, and I love Rylan Hartley, by the way. In terms of goalies, we've heard a lot talk about Christian Del Bianco. I know you broadcast him a ton in Calgary.
Mm-hmm.
We've also got Nick Rose, who has been incredible as well. And then I've been trying to campaign for rookie Brett Dobson, who happened to turn around the Swarm at the right time. He started starting games.
Yeah.
They look pretty good. Who is your goalie of the year? I think you have a vote, right?
Yeah, I'll get a vote, and this is a tough one, because if you listen to Coast this weekend, my hot take was that Christian Del Bianco will win the MVP, but Nick Rose will win goaltender of the year. And I say that because Nick Rose's numbers are going to be phenomenal once again. He's got an 891 goals against. He's got an 80.4 save percentage. He has some of the best numbers we've ever seen from a goaltender, and his save percentage would probably be a little better had he not been pulled, because the Toronto Rock were just up by 7-8, and Matt Sawyer gave Troy Holochuk some minutes. So his numbers are a little shortened because of that. The fact that Christian Del Bianco It has 18 assists, is going to set the NLL record for most minutes played. He just tied a career high for wins in a season. Like, he's setting all these personal goals. I think that is why he is the MVP. But I think and I feel that Nick Rose finally gets his just due and wins his first ever Goaltender of the Year award with just the body of work that he has allowed Toronto to be the number one team in the East, barring what happens this weekend. It's due. And I think that is something that's finally going to come Nick Rose's way. I think you couldn't go wrong either way. I know a lot of people say, well, how can a guy win MVP and not be the best in his position? Well, that's the difference between what an MVP is. It's just the most valuable player to your team.
Bingo.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. But I think the goalie union is going to get a lot of love when it comes down to the awards this year.
As a big guy, I love it. I love it. Hey, and I appreciate your insight on that because I'll admit I have not watched Coast to Coast this week. I was going to and I literally forgot this morning, but I know it's up. So great job on that.
Appreciate
And Rookie of the Year, though, is a tough one as well because I had Jonathan Donville on yesterday. He's been great, but he also plays with some pretty good players. I think Brett Dobson could. Are we going to see a goalie sweeping the big awards, or
Yeah.
you think it's going to be Donville?
You know, if Jonathan Donville doesn't get a goal in these final couple of games for Panther City and they kind of stumble their way into the postseason and Brett Dobson can get Georgia into third place, I think a lot of people will take that into consideration. I don't think it happens. I don't think anyone gets this away from Jonathan Donville. But the fact that we are arguing between Donnie, Dauber, Jack Hanna, Danny Logan in Saskatchewan,
Yep.
what Ryan Boudreau, Jake Boudreau, and Jarrett Smith have done in Saskatchewan this year. The rookie classes have been absolutely phenomenal. We're finally starting to see Ryan Lanchbury get comfortable in the National Lacrosse League. So there are going to be some great names up for Rookie of the Year this year. I think it's a 3-horse race. No disrespect to Danny Logan. I think he should probably be in that conversation as well.
Right.
But over the last few weeks, what Dobson has done has launched himself into that conversation. Jack Hanna will be there at the end of the day. But I truly believe, as of right now, it's Jonathan Donville's. But it wouldn't surprise me if a Dobson, a Logan, or a Hanna worked their way into that conversation to give Donnie his run. But it'll be interesting to see how these last few weeks go because Jonathan Donville hasn't scored a goal in his past 2 games. He's only got 4 points in those games. So he's producing in the assist column, but not with the goals. And I know he's not happy about it. And if Dauber can get his team into the playoffs, into that third hole, and they basically run out the table here, I know a lot of people are going to be hard-pressed not to give him a vote.
I love it. And again, I appreciate your insight. And one more thing, just to plug you some more.
Yeah.
I'm sure you're broadcasting a game this week. Which one is it?
No, I'm off this weekend.
Wow.
I get to relax. As you can see behind me, my walls are empty. I'm moving, so it gives me some time to focus on that. But I'm going to be enjoying the TSN game tonight. Obviously, Halifax, New York. We have the New York-Vancouver game next weekend, so obviously be watching New York very closely. But tomorrow night, Buffalo, Toronto, ESPNU. It's not just the game of the week; it's the game of the year. First place on the line in the East. The winner gets that number 1 seed. So I'm going to be firmly planted on my couch, making a good dent watching that one. And then the last weekend, we'll get Jeff Teet's debut in Vancouver, and we'll see how that one goes.
I cannot wait. It's been a great year to be on ESPN Plus, I'd say, especially here in the States.
Absolutely.
Teddy Jenner, thank you so much for all you do for the game. And you, sir, enjoy your bye week.
I appreciate you, Michael. Stay sharp, man, and keep doing what you're doing here on the dive, man.
Absolutely. We'll have you on again. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, brother.